Arsenal are considering a potential move for Fulham midfielder Joao Palhinha, according to reports. Palhinha came close to leaving Fulham in the summer as a 55 million deal with Bayern Munich was agreed, but the Premier League side were unable to sign a replacement before the end of the window. Bayern have retained their interest in Palhinha ahead of the upcoming transfer window, but according to Fabrizio Romano, Bayern are now facing competition from Arsenal. What I can confirm about Palhinha, this was around the media in the recent days, is that there are also English clubs interested in Palhinha, and one of those clubs is Arsenal. Romano said on Kick. It is true that Arsenal appreciate the player. There are some people at the club who consider Palhinha a very good player. It's one of the players they discussed internally. There are two issues though. The first one is the age. He's not a super young player. I think next year he will be 29. Also the price. Arsenal can't spend the amount of money, something like 70-80 million pounds, on one more midfielder after spending the big amount of money they invested on Declan Rice. My feeling is if Arsenal will try to do something very big, it will be for Douglas Luiz. But it's going to be more than tough because Aston Villa don't want to sell the player. So Gunners, today we are going to discuss should Arsenal try and sign Joao Palhinha this January or not? And how would he potentially fit into this current Arsenal squad? But before we start, don't forget to leave a like to this video and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Okay, now let's get into it. Who is Joao Palhinha? He is a 28-year-old Portugal international who currently plays for Fulham and is widely regarded as one of the best midfielders in the Premier League at this moment. His current transfer market value is around 47 million pounds, but we already know that Bayern Munich were ready to pay 55 million pounds to London club for his services last summer. And I highly doubted that Fulham would want anything less now. In fact, they probably want more. Because after his move to Bayern Munich collapsed, he decided to sign a new deal with Fulham that will keep him at the club till 2028. So his price tag will probably be even higher right now, especially if a Premier League club comes knocking on their door. Look, I think Palhinha is a great player. From what I've personally seen of him, I think he's an absolute monster on the pitch. And from what I've been reading and listening recently online from scout reports, tactical insights, blah blah blah, basically everyone has only words of praise for him. And for most, it is strange that such a player is still at Fulham. No offense to Fulham, but come on. Although there's absolutely no doubt that he's a top quality player, two things are bothering me about this potential transfer. First, his age. He's turning 29 next year. And knowing Mikel Arteta and Edu Gaspar, I don't think he's a type of player on who they would be ready to splash a major amount of cash. And that brings us to my second point, and that is his price tag. According to some journalists and media, Fulham could reportedly want a fee of around 70 million pounds for the player, potentially even more. Look, Declan Rice was a perfect profile to break a bank. 24 years old, just had the best season of his career at West Ham, won the European trophy, Premier League proven, England international, already having lots of experience. Perfect profile. Everything seemed right around that deal. In fact, Rice is probably the perfect profile of a player who you would break a bank for. And surprise, surprise, it turned out to be a great deal. Like I've already said numerous times, if we pay 200 million for him, I think he would be worth it. He's just so good. So, you get my point. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Arteta decides to sign him this January. Of course it could happen, but knowing our transfer policy and how we've been handling our business lately, I highly doubt it. Yes, he's a great player. He's Premier League proven. He's in his prime right now. He's 28. But I just don't think Arteta would be willing to splash so much cash on Palhinha to replace a 30-year-old Thomas Partey. Honestly. I know, Partey is a lot more injury prone, but still. This just doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't look to me like a typical Arsenal deal. Douglas Luiz, on the other hand, would probably be a lot better deal. He's 24 years old, he's playing the best football of his career, and his profile is exactly what Arsenal need right now to strengthen their midfield. Plus, he would probably cost less than Joao Palhinha. So if I could pick one, I would pick Douglas Luiz. I just think he would make much more sense for us in the long term. But the only problem with him is that Aston Villa are currently playing some brilliant football under Unai Emery, and they are probably, well, at least based on their current form, one of the contenders for the top 4 finish this season, if we're being honest. I know it sounds weird, but think about it for a moment. Villa are currently 3rd on the table and only 4 points behind Arsenal. Look, let's put it this way. I think Arsenal, Liverpool, and Manchester City are definitely going to finish in the top 4 this season, based on everything we've seen so far this season. And not necessarily in that order, of course. But, at least in my opinion, the 4th place is wide open for everyone. Aston Villa, Manchester United, Newcastle, Brighton, Chelsea, Tottenham. I mean, there are so many clubs currently that are fighting for that 4th spot, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm not saying that Aston Villa will definitely finish in the top 4, but who knows? Maybe they could pull a Leicester. Who knows? Nothing would shock me at this point. So why am I saying this? Because taking all these things into consideration, it would be much harder for Arsenal to lure Douglas Luiz this January than it was last January, when they were absolutely terrible and Unai Emery wasn't there. Right now, I don't know. I mean, Arsenal could pay the transfer fee and logically offer Luiz a better salary than he has now, but maybe he wants to be a part of this Aston Villa project, and maybe he's not interested in moving. Same thing that happened with Newcastle last season, with Bruno Guimaraes and other players, who would cost a lot more money right now. And they probably wouldn't even want to leave the club right now when they are being part of something big in the club's history. Let's put it that way. I started this video with Palhinha and now I'm talking about Newcastle and Bruno Guimaraes. How did that happen? I hope you don't mind. Alright, what else I wanted to say about Palhinha? If we truly decide to go all out and buy him this January or in the summer, according to some reports, I wouldn't mind that deal one bit. I think he's an absolute powerhouse of a player. And if you pair him with Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard in front of them, best midfield in the league, 100%. Champions League, we are coming. Where is it? Wembley. We will be there. But if you ask me, it would be the same story if we buy Douglas Luiz. I know they are not the same players stats-wise, the same type of player, but whoever we put in that pivot alongside Declan Rice would be an absolute upgrade. I just don't want us to see in January or February using Jorginho, Kai Havertz, Mohamed Oneni, Leandro Trossard or whatever in midfield with Rice, because we didn't manage to sign someone this winter. As we already discussed, Thomas Partey is obviously on his way out from the club. And even if he somehow decides to stay, or better said, if Arteta decides to keep him and trust him till the end of the season. Look, he's reportedly injured until the end of the year, plus he's going to AFCON, where he will probably pick another injury when he returns, knowing our luck. I don't know. I made a video about Thomas Partey and his whole situation recently, so go and watch that if you're interested, where I shared all my thoughts on what I think is going to happen, so if you haven't already, check that out. Alright, to end this topic and to give my final verdict. Honestly, as much as I think Palhinha would be a great addition for us, I just don't think Arteta and Edu Gaspar will pay 70 or 80 million pounds this winter or in the summer for 29-year-old Joao Palhinha. It just doesn't make sense to me, I'm being honest. So I completely agree with Fabrizio Romano, like I quoted on the beginning of the video. Fabrizio said on Kick, Palhinha's age and transfer fee just doesn't sound like something that would make sense for Arsenal. And I completely agree. You know what? What I think will happen in January is we will try and sign Douglas Luiz. Aston Villa will play tough and they would refuse to sell to us, especially during the middle of the season. And Arsenal will probably sign some Belgian wonderkid. And we will rely on the players we have already at the club. And potentially Partey, if he stays at the club and recovers from his injuries. And then in the summer, we would splash cash once again on at least one, if not two, big new players. By the way, this reminded me, what's going on with our youngsters from Hale End, Lewis Kelly and Ethan Nwaneri? Are we going to give them a chance this season? I really thought Arteta would try to use them bit by bit this season. I mean, I know they are still super young, but you know, clubs all around Europe are using their academy players more and more every year. Even the biggest clubs. Especially with these player prices and how expensive it is to sign some new potential wonderkid from some other club. So yeah, I would definitely love to see some of these guys feature for us throughout the season. But once again, let's go back to our primary topic. And that is Joao Palhinha. Gunners, let's take a look at some of your comments from this morning's post regarding Joao Palhinha rumors to see what are your thoughts on this potential deal. Etienne Kenneth says, this tells you the immense quality of the English Premier League. Aston Villa in third place, Newcastle United with Brighton beating big teams tells you there are no small teams in the EPL. It's survival of the fittest. Each club in the EPL have world-class players there. The league is amazing. And you know what? I completely agree. The league is amazing. The best it's ever been, probably. You have top quality players around in every single club. So yeah, the quality's never been higher. Eric O'Flynn says, Rice and Palhinha with Odegaard in 10 is the best midfield 3 in the league, hands down. Probably is. If that happens, it will probably be arguably the best midfield in the league. Christos Anesti says, with the potential exit of Partey, we're gonna need another midfielder. Let's take him. Mesut Özil 9379 says, now he's a powerhouse. David Connor says, I feel like I'm dreaming. Kenneth says, Declan Rice and Palhinha. Mickey Degunu says, good player, did damage to us, so must be good. Joao Palhinha says, I would love to sign Palhinha and Luiz. So you would love to sign both of them. I agree. It would be perfect if we could sign both Palhinha and Luiz. User says, definitely 100%. Sapa Diary says, we need a strong striker. Too many midfielders. I don't know about that. But I agree, we also need a striker. But I don't know about too many midfielders, to be honest. Chris Morton says, get it done, him next to Rice is pure power, bruv. Bruv, pure power, I agree. Wise Pala says, bring him in January. Simon Bellman says, if they really need a replacement midfielder, give them 45 million and on any. Then we got ourselves a deal. Okay? Strike says, as number 6, yes. Rice number 8. If we get Douglas Luiz, it could be opposite. Rice number 6, Luiz number 8. Snooty says, wasn't he supposed to have joined Bayern last summer? Yes, he was, but the deal collapsed in the last minute, literally. He was at the airport in Munich, and he was waiting to sign his papers, and basically Fulham pulled off the deal at the last possible minute, because they couldn't find a replacement, if I remember this all right. So, yeah. Killen Diggum says, yes, please. Sandy says, wait, I thought Fulham asked 65 million pounds. Look, I don't know. I honestly don't know what's the real price. Some journalists are writing that Fulham would want 55 million pounds. Some say 60, some say 65, some say 80. So the truth is probably somewhere in between, around 65, 70. Mercurial the Spectre says, for the squad depth, yes, he is very good, but for the starting lineup, I don't like him. He's too one-dimensional as a midfielder. Jeffrey says, we need to sign Fofana from Monaco, not interested in another aged midfielder. We can't get 6 years out of minimum at the highest level. Stephen Carter says, I'm sure Palhinha will go Bayern because they win league every season, and with Kane, also trophies for him, the easy league we call it. And Trippy says, we don't need him. And Gunners, that is basically it for today's video. So tell me, what are your thoughts? If you could pick one, who would you rather sign? Joao Palhinha or Douglas Luiz? If you could pick only one. For me personally, it would be Douglas Luiz, honestly. But write down in the comments because I'm really interested to hear you out. Once again, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Thank you and see you on the next one. Peace.